Welcome back. This is Victoria with Women's Issues, Women's Voices, and we are in the second half of a interview with Kris Tenny-Brittian about the LOACA Life. Woohoo! So I'm going to read from the official introduction.
Oh, please.
Okay. LOACA, L-O-A-C-A, are ladies of a certain age. That is, women who are in their perimenopausal, menopausal, and postmenopausal years. So one of the things I'm going to tell you is I actually had to look up. I didn't realize you could be postmenopausal. I thought that was dead.
I didn't know that either.
I mean, I was just like, I thought you were like premenopausal, menopausal.
Yep.
That's it. And then you died, right? And
right.
like,
Exactly.
Wow, there's a postmenopausal. I'm curious to know more, right? So, and then, so that's the LOACA, ladies of a certain age, LOACA living. I love this. The quality of life that focuses on thriving rather than merely surviving, right? A way of living in which LOACA life has purpose. LOACA women, oh, I see. LOACA women live. LOACA, ladies of a certain age, live, I can read this, with purpose, own their own lives, age without getting old, create opportunities, and access all life has to offer. So LOACA is a double, there's a word for that, but I can't think
Entendre?
of it. Is that it? There's double entendre.
Maybe
So it's ladies of a certain age, and also every single letter has a different meaning.
Yes, and just
right. So there's 5 of them.
There are 5.
Living with purpose, owning our own lives, accessing all life has to offer, creating opportunities, and aging without getting old. Yes. Woohoo! Equipped, empower, encourage. Okay, so where do you want to start, like in telling the listeners about like your ideas about these different letters and what they mean, and how are you sharing this with the world, and where do you want to start?
Yeah, so we could go write down the letters perhaps and just toss them out there, right? So this living with a purpose, I have to tell you that when I was in 6th grade, 6th, 7th grade, and they're asking that question, what do you want to be when you grow up? Now, I know I could turn off some people with this answer, but bear with me. I told them I wanted to be a minister. And they said, you can't because you're a girl and you don't go to church. We didn't go to church.
Technicalities.
Come on. Well, we went to church until my mother died, and my father said there can't be God, and he really did become atheist. And
he really believed that.
But I was having these spiritual experiences even at that age, and all I knew was church, and spiritual experiences, church minister. But you know, if that's not what I'm supposed to be, then what am I supposed to be? So you know, at 13, I'm supposed to be popular. So I tried to be popular, but I didn't fit that. I was always very chubby and heavy, right? And so not at least not back in the early 70s. That's not where it was. And so, and so I discovered diet pills, over the, over the counter diet pills, Dexatrim, and smoking. And then, that was 7th grade, 13, 14, smoking pot. It just kind of got bigger. And 15, and at 15, I discovered Dexedrine, which highly controlled substance, right? And so Dexedrine, 15, 16. And at 17, I ended up leaving home. Lived on the streets for 2 years. And I really believe that, and I thought I'd be a rock star in there because I could play keyboards, but I have horrendous shyness and a stage fright. So the only way I could do that would be to be drunk on my tail, with these other pieces that are there. And what I came to realize as I was, moving through my 40s was, by the time I'm in my 40s, I've learned that we have we have purposes, and we even innately know those when we're young, but the world, our situations, all kind of things tell us, no, you can't, or no, that's not for you, or we have parents, helicopter parents, or whatever they are, that are encouraging us to do this and that, and we get locked in, and so we do all kinds of other things that are just not fulfilling. So this living life, what better time than this time of changing and exploring ourselves? And it's not just exploring ourselves physically, but there's that mental and emotional and that spiritual piece that come into that can allow us to live our life with purpose. So one of the goals, I guess you could say, of LOACA Life, a part of our mission there is to make sure that we have articles and people that are writing about that. What does it mean to live a good, like, whole life, a life with purpose? How do we discover our purposes, right?
And you just mentioned, so one of the ways that you're sharing this is the website.
Yes.
Right? I mean, that's your, like, that's the main vehicle. And people can find the website at
LOACA.life, ladies of a certain age, LOACA.life. Thank you. Yes. And some of the ways with that, I'm not sure exactly where these pieces are going to exactly come in at this moment, because it's a whole, I could say, well, this is about living, this is about owning. And if y'all haven't realized yet, I do think randomly. So I'm moving around, but I know Victoria gets that, and she's keeping up with me, hopefully pulling me to where I need to be here, or she wants me to be at this in that way. But we're going to do a Zoom tea party. I do this once a month with a couple of friends. We're getting ready to add another person into that. We're experimenting, but we're going to go up on Facebook and do a 4-day, they call them challenges, but it's, what is a tea party? What do you do at a tea party? We're going to show how to make savory pieces, how to set our scene. And then, for people who want to, we're just going to have a Zoom tea party. And I hope we have people from all over the country. I've got friends all over the country. I've got these 2 wonderful women in China that I'm not sure they can get on Zoom. We have to do all our talking on WeChat. So that's one of those ways about living and having fun, and we can bring up conversations about purpose there. And the other is I'm going to do online Zoom retreats. So we'll start in the next few weeks with just a 1-day retreat where we'll follow, some morning prayers, midday prayer. There will be music playing so that people are able to create space. And again, just as with the tea, we'll do some 4-day pieces on Facebook that just talk, what does it mean to be on retreat? How do you create that space when you can't go anywhere, or you won't, how do you do that with someone else in your, a housemate or a homemate that's there with you? So that's, these pieces of how are we going to live? How do we own our own life? Right.
Well, and that's, that's one of the things that you and I talked about, is that, that in some ways, this LOACA idea is really about being female.
Yes.
Right. Identifying as woman, because from the how you and your environment introduce the menstrual cycle, what it means as you go through puberty, what is the value of being a woman, whether you choose to have children and can do it, whether that is a choice you don't want, or for some women they want to but they aren't able to, but they produce and they create in other ways. There's all of these pieces, but then I feel like there is something qualitatively different about this that when you start to have that change, where that, just literally, like, where you're no longer on the the moon cycle clock,
Right.
right? And you know, if it's a natural menopause, it's usually an age where also your children are leaving, and it's a lot of transition, and there's an opportunity to owning your own life in a way that, you know, yeah, you've always been owning your life in a way, and yet there is something different about being of a certain age.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And
Yeah.
as you mentioned, you know, for those of us that go through natural menopause, and to recognize that that happens for some women in their late 30s and their 40s. And I have to tell you, I am 60, as I said earlier, but I just got to celebrate the entry into postmenopause in the last few months. You know, it was one of those, am I in menopause or not? And every month, just like with your period, right? How we do this when we're little, we get our periods. It's, oh my gosh, what happens if it starts in school? We don't know enough about our bodies. And many of us had these really bad experiences with our periods starting, you know, we didn't know days or count. We didn't keep calendars, right? When you're 11, 12, 13, 14 years old. So we went through that, and then it's waiting and it's counting the months, just like when we, you know, as we come into a birthing, am I pregnant? Am I not pregnant? Can I get pregnant? I don't want to get pregnant. That whole piece ends, you know, starts as other pieces. And I love this. I heard this, and I know medically it's not exactly accurate, but for me it was a nice it's been a nice focal point, and that is that when we enter into menopausal years or menopausal states, right, or postmenopause, that it's like returning to our prepubescent selves, right, where our bodies, just are, and we don't have all this other detail, as you point out, that we can just be in there. And I think,
and for me, it also, and that's, you know, something about owning my own life, is that it gave me compassion for the young Vicky that I was then. Yes. Because the thing is what I realized is, okay, and this is, again, no one's told me this medically, this is where in my head, it took me 10 or more years from when I very first started feeling my ears felt like they would turn into potato chips. They would get so hot and crispy, right? That was my first symptom in my really in my mid 40s. And then, you know, but then, you know, 10 plus years, right? And then it occurred to me that the day that my period started was not the beginning of my menstrual time, that the body had to gear up for that. And so there was at least a year or more where I was already starting to be influenced by hormones, as I think I was like 12. I don't really have an accurate memory. But, you know, you think it's like, oh, you're already being affected by this at maybe 10 or 11, and you don't actually start having a bleeding cycle until, and everybody focuses on that when it starts. Right. But the thing is that it really it started sometime before that. Similar to, well, when it ends, it doesn't actually end, right? It kind of goes, and, you know, and I had my brain, my good friend whose name is just poof out of my head. I so apologize. Christy, who is my coworker, but for some reason her last name is just not coming to my head. We are both counselors at Kindred, and I interviewed her. You can find her interview on YouTube as well. And she is a specialist in postpartum challenges, right? And she said that, like, I never realized this, that postpartum is from when you've actually given birth to a year later.
Wow.
I like that. It's like when you stop and you really let yourself think about these processes, right? I mean, that we have these very clear ideas. You know, so um, so for any woman listening at whatever age, like just letting yourself consider, what does it mean to you to live with purpose? What does it mean to you to own your own life? And then to me, accessing all that, like all that this has to offer, right?
Yeah.
All that life has to offer.
Right.
Is that, you know, okay, so this comes back to the website.
Right.
How do you know like what life has to offer?
Right.
Right?
Well, and I have to tell you that when I first wrote that, I had to keep going back and sitting with it. And you know, I will ask, is that really what you want to say? What does that communicate? And because I can go negative there, right? Accessing all life has to offer. And I can hear some women, and no doubt some of you out there, I can hear you saying, well, you know, life just, can I swear, is crappy. How about that?
I think that one's okay.
Right? Life is, you know, all I've gotten is a bunch of crap in life. You know, it's been really, really bad. And what do you mean accessing? Or we can't even think of what there is to access. I lived in inner city Atlanta for 12 years, and in my young ages, and in a very, very economically disadvantaged neighborhood. And I was economically disadvantaged. I grew up in a very upper middle class home. And the one thing I realized years later was I knew that there were choices, that there were not choices, but like our school was the awful. In fact, I brought parents, mothers together, and we ended up closing one of the elementary schools because it was so despicable. And it took so much maneuvering and so much connecting. But my upbringing in an upper middle class community in school had given me resources and tools. And I knew we didn't have to, our children didn't have to live like that. We didn't have to live like that. But those women who had always lived in that neighborhood, in that system, they didn't know. So that's what I'm hearing and seeing right now as I think about accessing all life has to offer, that a lot of us don't even know what that is, but we have to figure out how we can see that, how we can experience that. And that's part of what I want LOACA to be for women, is this place they can go and they can see.
Right. And I even think, Kris, like what really vibrates me is, to go back to your original story in the first half, is that just being given permission to know that menopause is not a disorder, you're not going crazy, like no reason to be ashamed, right? Like that there are other women that you can talk to women, right? And this is one of the things that excites me about this, is one of the, and just to put a little seed, I'm going to be doing an interview with someone, and we're going to be talking about like the challenges of a surgical menopause. And how she and I started on the conversation is I was talking about how the loneliness for me, because when I started asking all the women that I know in my family, they had all gotten early hysterectomies due to medical conditions. And I was very adamant that I would do everything in my power to keep my uterus. I don't even know why, right? But that was a really important thing for me. And discovering the loneliness of, like, in some ways that would actually serve me well, because nobody was telling me the rules, right? Which is probably part of the reason that I was like, but that also that it's like, oh, just like figuring out, well, how do I stay healthy and go through this major change, right? And then that brings us to the C, like creating opportunities for ourselves to be, live in these bodies and in these lives in ways that like are full, and
Yes.
we get to and we can even get to the A through this,
Right.
that we are aging without getting old, right?
Yes.
That aging is different than getting old, and that goes back to even you know, so I think about, like, so we talked about Hecate in the first half, right? And the crone, and how we see her as this old woman, right? But the thing is that she is aged, but
Right.
she's not necessarily old,
Right.
right? She's, because to me, they're old implies like stale,
Oh, yes.
done,
Moldy. I
right?
had to
Yeah,
throw an
molded.
old avocado out yesterday.
Right,
Yes.
exactly, right? And so, and I think about like some of the women who have really inspired me. So my spiritual mother is a woman at Heart Haven who, then they dedicate their lives to the Divine Mother. And when I found out that she was 75, I was like, jaw drop, right? I mean, this woman is like doing yoga, and she's so active, and she meditates every day, and she's just so vibrant. And it's like, oh, she is aging. She's not old, right?
Right.
And I think about, I look at Patti Smith, right? She's aging, right? I look at, I think about, these women that I know, that I admire. Maya Angelou was one of those women. Like,
Yes.
Maya Angelou never got old. She'll never be old.
No.
She aged and she passed over. But man, you're talking about LOACA, man. So yeah.
Well, and one of
So,
my spiritual mothers, Nanny, I never knew my grandparents.
mhm.
My family has a way of dying young, and but Nanny, my ex, ended up in the hospital. I hadn't been in Atlanta very long. I had just ended up in a church, found a church. Well, the church found me, anyways, and I needed someone to care for my 18-month-old daughter. And the minister said, "Hey, there's this woman. She watches my daughter, but you need to know she's in her late 70s, and
Mm.
everybody calls her Nanny." And I was like, "Okay." And over the course of the next 10 years or 8 years, Nanny was my nanny and took care of my children. She took care of my son from the time he was not even 6 weeks old, 4 weeks old. I had him during my second year of college, and I needed to get back, or third year, I needed to get back to school in the spring quarter. And so there he was, this just her baby. I mean, he was just her baby. And at that point, she was 80 years old.
Wow.
So 81. Oh my gosh, she was 81. But she lived her life with a purpose. She had always worked in the Aero shirt factory. She had brown lung. She left early from there to take care of her aunt and then her husband, both who died shortly after she left her job. But she lived with purpose. Her purpose was to care for children, and she owned her life.
You're making me think of, and I know we only have like a minute or two, but out of the movie Harold and Maude. Are you familiar with that movie?
I haven't seen it in forever.
Forever, but there's a scene where Ruth Gordon, where Maude is saying, LIVE, you've got to live, otherwise you don't have any stories to tell in the locker room, right? So I feel like you and I are sort of we're downloading, we're communing with Maude. So in this last minute, so I just want to hit the so it's LOACA Life. It's LOACA, ladies of a certain age .life. That's the website.
That's the website. It's about living a LOACA life.
Living a LOACA life. I can tell you that I wrote an article about that's going to be rolling out. There's going to be articles and information constantly kind of changing on that website.
We have a YouTube channel. We haven't even gotten near to starting to put up our our TV pieces.
Again, LOACA Life, same thing. LOACA.life, right?
Yep.
There is Facebook.
Right?
Facebook.
Yes, please be my friends. Be our friends.
Be our friend, right?
Be our friend.
This, if you have any questions that you'd like me to forward to Kris, you can always write to WIWV@KOPN.org. and those emails come to me, I can connect you. This interview will also be posted on my website, which is Embodiment Live Life More Fully, which fits so perfectly. Yes, it fits so perfectly. And so, last little bit, anything that you want to say? Viva la loca.
Yes. Yeah, just that you have been created for a purpose, and this is your life. Live it, because too many of us are letting life live us. And if there's it's nothing else that I have learned, and I live to help people and want you to live. And this is what LOACA is about. Live your life. It's your life. Don't let it live you.
Yep, you're the only one that's got it. And we're going to go out with some music that Kris is going to select.
Yes.
See you all in a few weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you.